Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Nextlander podcast. I'm Vinny Caravella. I am here. I am crawled out. I've built my way out of my Zelda hole. I've descended from the Skylands. They're calling them Skylands? I'm calling them Skylands.
You're a Skylander is what you're saying?
I have always been a Skylander. One of those mix and match ones. Alex Navarro, how are you?
Oh, I'm just out here taking suicide dives off of giant floating islands into very cushiony pools of water, apparently.
Very cushiony. Brad Shoemaker, how are you?
Floating.
It's gracefully
ever floating through the universe.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen a lot. We're going to get to Tears of the Kingdom in a little bit here, along with Humanity and some Cook Serve Forever a little later on. But you knew this was going to happen before we get to the actual meat of the Tears of the Kingdom. But
tell me about the meat.
The videos of people just creating phalluses and all sorts of things,
crucifying Koroks.
Yep. Just you knew it was going to happen, and it sure did. So it's funny to see those videos go up there. Anything else before we jump in here? I have
man. This is
really.
What's been consuming my life the last week.
Didn't expect to go straight to the flaming wiener.
No one ever does.
Kind of thought we would build up to it, but certainly if there is one viral video that has been dominating the conversation.
Well, I have seen a couple of flaming wieners. So is it the one where they explode? The person explodes with the flaming wiener?
Yes, the flaming wiener Wicker Man explodes.
Hang on, can you repeat that?
The flaming Wicker Man wiener explodes.
Flaming wiener Wicker Man? I just need to write this down.
Either one. Put it in any order you like.
The old F W W M E. Got it.
Fwemi.
Fwemi. Let's just jump in there then. If you're listening, we're going to talk about The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. We're going to get in here. We might have some spoiler stuff, but I mean, it's Zelda.
None of us are that far in at this
None of us
point,
are that far in. Just to let you know where I'm at, I just finished the first quote-unquote dungeon. Are any of you guys past that?
I'm not past that, but I'm on my way to that first dungeon.
Okay. And then, Brad, you're not past that yet, right?
I have taken a detour on this game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But we should talk about this game before we talk about that.
Well, so people know I'm going to say no, Brad, you were not past that part for spoilers.
No, I dabbled with the very beginning of the game a little bit, like the stuff on the stream that we did.
Uh-huh.
And then I somehow unexpectedly fell back into Breath of the Wild.
Okay. All right. Hey, that's fair.
So somehow I have been playing a shitload of that instead, and I mean a lot.
They are somewhat related video games, so it does make sense.
Yes. I never finished that game, and I'm realizing now that I think this might be my only chance.
Sure,
to do so.
I don't know if you'd want to go back to it.
I'm getting the extremely strong sense that you might not be able to go backwards here.
Yeah, so I guess let's talk about Tears of the Kingdom. So far, I'm having kind of a sputtery time with it, I'd say. Like, my history with Breath of the Wild is I liked it. I didn't love it as much as some people. I wasn't... it's not my favorite game of all time, but I do really like it. This one I am finding so similar to Breath of the Wild that I'm almost a little having a hard time getting so into it. Like, even narratively, the setup, obviously the mechanic with building stuff is very new, but even some of the powers feel a little too familiar for me. And it just seems like they reset the narrative and are just redoing Breath of the Wild.
That you're
again.
Describing The Legend of Zelda.
Yeah. There's kind of that. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, but also even like, what is the closest analog to this game? Majora's Mask, right? Like, inarguably.
Yeah, but
the other major example of a Zelda game basically taking the same map and world and grafting new mechanics onto it. But like, that game did, I assume Ganon is probably in there in some form at some point, but like, that game did come up with pretty wildly different stuff.
I mean, the mechanics
to graft onto Ocarina.
The mechanics of this game are pretty wildly different with the build mechanic and the sticking stuff together. To me, it's just, listen, I put a lot of time into Breath of the Wild, chased down a lot of stuff, and there's something about just hitting Link over the head with a frying pan, having him lose all of his stamina, hearts, and memory of everything he's found. I think what did it was opening up the album again and being like, oh my God, you want me to take pictures of everything again? Of everything again. You want me to I took pictures of everything the first time.
But it's different now.
Now it's all in the sky. It's totally different.
But it's all the same stuff on the ground too. So that was a little deflating, being like, could you have just brought in my album?
No,
I have
because
to take
there's
a picture
new
of
challenges attached to all that
just
stuff.
Just add the new challenges into the thing and let me.
Your horses are not enough. Is that not enough for you?
You know, you can't put a harness on Epona, which is, hey, listen, you can't put a harness on Epona, but you also can't put a harness on Epona, which I get because I think Epona is the amiibo horse. So I guess you dropping in a sick horse from an amiibo, but listen, I'm not coming out here to say I don't like this game. I'm just saying I think maybe it wasn't long enough, and I'm still. Was it 2017?
6 years.
Yeah,
there are people that are going to come and burn your house down for saying that.
The Wicker Weiner man is going to come for me.
Not the reaction I was necessarily expecting to hear about in here.
Like I said, I don't not like it. I'm just having like fits and starts of like, I can put this game down. I can play a bit and then like, look, I finished the first one. I completed it the hell out of the first one. So, I'm not coming at it being like, another Zelda game. I like the Zelda franchise. I'm just saying, I think I wanted something a little more novel.
It's interesting because I'm having kind of the opposite experience where I had a real hard time getting into a groove with Breath of the Wild, specifically because of its extreme openness and unwillingness to generally be like, hey, this is probably the next thing you should go do.
Well, no, hang on. I'm going to jump in here because I am playing that game again. Like, you may have forgotten that game is more directed.
It has directed parts,
Like,
certainly.
It absolutely marks your map with the next quest, the next major thing to do.
But also, there's a real, like, lackadaisical approach as far as, like, well, you could just go do this, or you could go do that, or whatever. And it's like, look, yes, it does have direction in it. It's just not directed the way that previous Zelda games were and the way that a lot of other open world games tend to be.
Well, the key difference, I mean, there is a succession of story quests at the beginning of that game. Mm-hmm. It's hey,
I did those.
Do these 4 shrines on the plateau and get the hang glider. Now go to Kakariko and talk to Impa. Now go to Hateno and talk to the lab people. Now to go do the Divine Beasts. And that's probably the biggest differentiator, is that it opens up when they give you the Divine Beasts and they're just like, hey, there's 4 bosses to go fight. There's 4 civilizations you should go talk to. Just go do them, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably the point where it fans out so much that I guess it could lose you. But, they do give you specific objective indicators to go to.
No, I know that. And that is where it lost me last time, as I got to about that point and I started just being like, I'm just kind of overwhelmed here. And there are other games that I think at that point where I was just a little more into, so I kind of stuck with those. But here, like, I'm jumping into this, and while I think the tutorial area is maybe a little laborious in terms of how long it drags you through the opening stuff, I have felt like I've managed to lock into a much better rhythm with the mix of, hey, I'm going to this next thing, but also there's some stuff along the way that I'm just going to do as I'm going and explore as I go. Like, I feel like I'm just locking in with this one better.
So, like, what is the story flow in terms of quest succession? Like, is it kind of one thing after another
in tiers?
In a straight path? Yeah.
It's exactly what you just said for Breath of the Wild. You do your 4 shrines on the Sky Islands. You hit the ground. You go talk to Impa, or in this case, you go talk to the Impa equivalents. And then they give you 4 shrines, 4 quote unquote beasts to go do.
Really?
And then you're like, all right, go do these 4. And I just did the Rito one again and was like, yep, here I am back here doing this dungeon, which again, I love the dungeons. I think they're fun. The puzzle solving's fun. Using the powers is fun. It's again, that you can laugh all you want at me for saying the narrative in the Zelda game, but it is really that structure is like
totally
very similar to Breath of the Wild, where I hope it opens up more after this first dungeon and the first, walk away power you get from that dungeon. But it just feels very similar to what I had done.
This is not a radical departure from the last game by any stretch. It's just something about, I think, the mix of powers they are giving you here and the things that you are being asked to play around with in different combinations maybe is just hooking me more. I don't know.
I like it. I don't dislike it. it's goofy to go make your spear swords or your spear or your flaming spear, whatever silly thing you want.
Whatever thing you want to set on fire and throw at a guy, you can do that.
But I'm running into the same stuff I had problems with in the first game, and I think what is burning me a little bit is like, I got past all these obstacles, which is the limited inventory space you have. So you're constantly doing triage on whether you want this item or not, right? So like, this one's 2 points higher than this one, I should get this one. Especially on the shield department, until you open up more shield slots. I assume you will eventually in this game too. You're pretty weak out of the gate here, so 3 hearts doesn't go a long way in this game, and you can quite easily find yourself dead from an encounter that you have to redo from not a great checkpoint, but it's not terrible. The checkpointing is okay. It's sometimes it's better sometimes than others. Sometimes you'll make your way through like 2 or 3 encounters and die, and then be like, you're checkpointing me back at the first one. And then basically your stamina wheel is all the way back to its beginning, but it's less of an issue here because of the mobility stuff they give you. I think I haven't gotten way into the crafting yet, because while I can craft certain things, I have not yet unlocked whatever they're going to do, if they do it, the ability to get more of the Zonai parts whenever I need them. So while I can make a sick cart, I'm having trouble powering it or moving it. You know what I mean? Like, while I can make a balloon to take me up, it's of limited use right now for me. So hopefully that will
You're talking about the battery stuff, basically, like more battery capacity.
The Zonai part, the parts that would give me some locomotion or allow me to move a little better than, with a sail or kind of catching that stuff. And
did you not grab a bunch of those from like the ball machine thing that like dumps a bunch of them out for you?
I did. I grabbed some, but I used them. I grabbed a bunch. I grabbed a bunch of fans, and then
I guess I just haven't really run into a situation yet where it's like I've been missing parts that I needed to build something.
Well, it's not because I need to; it's because I want to, right? Like, because I just want to engage with it. I want to goof around in there, and
it will change your opinion when you hear that an infinite item dupe exploit has already been discovered. And would you use it?
I mean, if I was maybe if I weren't doing it for a challenge, I would. Like I don't want to. I'm not trying to. My favorite part so far has been there's the guy who's holding up the signs for the construction workers, and that's been my favorite build thing so far. Is like you basically have to prop up his sign.
Yes, I've done that.
I really enjoy those. Every time I see one, I get excited because those are fun scaffolding building challenges that
woodworking,
are very silly,
if you will.
yes, those are super fun. When I find the Korok who needs to go reunite with the other Korok, I'll usually give it a try, and then once I burn through the available things that are there, I'll just mark it on my map and be like, I'll come back later when I have more pieces or more options here. So, the dungeons, like I said, the dungeons are fun because you get to use those powers in really creative ways. Actually, that wind dungeon I did was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Getting around the power they give you around there, I thought was okay. Like, it wasn't my favorite Zelda thing to have. It's all right.
Okay.
like again, like I'm having an all right time with it, but I'm not head over heels in love with this game. But I wasn't with the first one either.
I'm wondering if maybe the difference I have is that I did not burn myself that hard on the original Breath of the Wild. Like, I played it, I liked it, and I definitely saw something I greatly admired in it, but it just, for some reason, at that time did not hit for me that way, so I got like maybe 8 to 10 hours into it total. And now playing this, it's not a game I haven't been able to put down. Like, it's a game I have been able to put down when just play in chunks when I feel like playing it. But the thing is, I'm really digging what I'm doing here, and this stuff does feel relatively novel to me because I didn't just do all of this before. And also, I guess I'm just not that burned by the idea of them taking away the hearts and the stamina and whatever, because it's like, of course they're going to do that. It's a new game. I expected to walk in there and basically say, you ain't shit now, go.
What is the upgrade system for hearts and stamina in this? Is it exactly the same?
It's 4 shrines get you 1 heart or 1 stamina.
That's exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like, or beat a dungeon will get you a container. So yeah, it's extremely familiar. Which again, that's kind of it's not necessarily the biggest knock on it, but it is. I'm finding it a little like, okay, this is very much Breath of the Wild which is what we knew, right? Is Breath of the Wild with these new mechanics in it.
Yeah, it's Breath of the Wild, but it's also a contraption generation machine, which is a really wild thing, the way they have built this stuff and the things you can kind of set loose in the world using those tools.
How different does the map seem so far?
It's hard. My memory's terrible on it.
They like ice cream scoop some flying islands out of it at the beginning, so I'm wondering, like, as you're roaming the actual map, like the one from the first game, is it just pockmarked with these big missing areas, or is it... Well, I mean, if you don't remember the first game as well, I guess that's hard to answer.
Hard to tell. I mean, like I said, I was over at the Rito Village, and it's different because of the narrative stuff that's going on there. But I couldn't tell you the landscape being, deformed or anything like that. The contraption building stuff is okay. I mean, look, we've played a lot of contraption building games. I think it's clever and smart and useful.
And funny. Honestly, the most important thing to me is that if you're going to do something like this and you give these people the kinds of tools that are like this, when those tools fail, it has to be funny. And just about every instance I've seen, either of someone else building a thing and having it go incredibly haywire, or my own instances of that, has had pitch perfect fucking comedic timing. Like, if I can at least go, ha, when something I'm trying to build just explodes out of nowhere, then you have succeeded. And I think that is what maybe one of the greater successes of this thing is, that it has pitch perfect comic timing for all the ways you can fuck up.
Yeah. So it's like a weird tonal overlay on this game, I think.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I can't speak as much for this game, but I assume the tone is similar to the first one. Like, they take themselves pretty seriously.
It's pretty somber, yeah.
Like, they are, somber, solemn, whatever. Compared to something like Banjo Nuts and Bolts, which pretty similar vehicle crafting, but just a ridiculous, over-the-top, surreal, nonsensical thing, Like, in that game, making a dick car and having it explode... Totally consistent with the milieu, right?
But you know what? I don't think it's that far off, because as much as like Link and Zelda and the main principals treat everything with deathly seriousness, everyone in Hyrule is a fucking idiot. Like, they are flailing Monty Python extras, and they always have been to some degree.
Yeah.
But especially in these last couple, the way they're portrayed is that they are all just bumbling fools, and wild, dumb shit keeps happening to them. And so, like, the world itself does not feel that far afield from, like, the kind of comedic stuff that is coming out of these weird building tools.
Yeah, that's a fair point, actually. Like, as much as I played the first game recently, just going talking to people in different towns and stuff, like, the game in general, I mean, specific characters, but also just the whole thing has got this kind of droll sense of humor to it. Just a lot of weird, pithy little one-liners between characters and stuff like that, so yeah.
There's enough tingle in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom to make it to add some levity to it. But yeah, I'll say this about the contraption building stuff. You're right, Alex. When stuff goes haywire, it can be super fun. I've also found it a little tedious to have to rebuild something again. And I know there are mechanics in place that I haven't gotten to yet to probably mitigate some of that. I just haven't gotten them yet. So that does make me just kind of walk away from something if I accidentally set this contraption I just spent 10 minutes building on fire, and then be like, oh my gosh, the thing just burned down. Okay, I will come back to this challenge later and do this again another time. Because like, it's the stuff that makes it funny is the stuff that can also make it frustrating occasionally.
Yes.
Fire is igniting for...
It's not devoid of frustration, but like I think more often than not, it hits the mark of, well, that was dumb, and doesn't just make me mad,
Yeah.
Do they give you the ability right up front to save designs and reproduce them, or is that a later thing?
It seems like that's a later thing.
I don't have it, and I don't even know where you get it. So, like
neither do I.
Hopefully you get it soon. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. I think I'm finding the similarities to Breath of the Wild to be a little bit of a detractor for me. Like that hewing that closely to everything. I mean, it splits off onto its own narrative, which has some interesting parts, but it's really a lot of beats from what I remember from the original story. And so maybe things will diverge as we keep going. I retain the right to change my opinion. Maybe this is just a slow starter as we go, but so far I'm liking it okay. I'm not loving it, which again was actually my similar take on Breath of the Wild when I played it. Was like, hey, this is a really well done open world game, but you know, that Nintendo magic didn't didn't grab hold of me.
See, that's the thing, is I think it is this time for me, which is weird. I'm not exactly sure what it is that this one is. Like you said, it is not a radically different game structurally from at least what I played of Breath of the Wild. It's just maybe it's just the timing. Maybe it's coming at a time in my life where I'm more ready to just kind of go with whatever this game is trying to do. But yeah, it's hitting for me. And like, you know, I think that despite the fact that it is, you know, running on pejoratively, you know, a goddamn cell phone or whatever people are calling the Switch these days, like, they are wringing a lot out of those visuals. They are figuring out a way to make that stuff still pop in a way that I think is certainly one of the best looking things on that hardware. And, you know, I'm digging like the abilities and playing around with that stuff in a way that I think I wasn't as much in the first game.
I think it looks and sounds pretty great, actually.
Yeah, the music's excellent.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about some of the quality of life improvements, although if you don't have recent experience with the previous game, you might not remember.
I think the recipes are better.
For cooking?
Yeah. Like, you can just hold an apple, go into the recipe, and then click it, and he'll hold 4 apples now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
They've streamlined that a little bit.
That's a substantial quality of life.
Yes,
I can tell you. Like, I read that if you're maxed on bows or swords or shields or whatever, and you try to pick up another one, it just lets you drop one on the... Yeah. That is huge.
So,
because that is like the thing in the first game, especially with as limited as the inventory is there.
You had to throw it.
You literally... And it's not the shortest process to open a treasure chest and just see what's in there.
Yeah.
And you literally have to go through that entire process twice every time you're full on something.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of like, not a lot, and this isn't a big deal, but there are a lot of abilities now and a lot of things to do, and it's a little bit of finger spaghetti sometimes. Like I hit the wrong button quite often, and when I'm trying to get into something, like, you know, attaching something to your arrow, to your bow, going into the right menu all the time. You know, I've got more than a few hours into it now, and I still will hit the wrong thing at the wrong time. Occasionally, it's not a huge deal. But yeah, stuff like that is okay, but it's not perfect, because now they have the fusing ability. So occasionally you'll open a chest, be full, and be like, the thing that I want in the chest, I want to be fused onto the base weapon I have in my hands. And in order to do that, I need to drop a thing, equip it, drop that thing, swap them out, because, you know, fusing a base to an extra part, sometimes you will get the base properties of the swing, you know? So if you have a spear as your base weapon, you're now using the thrust instead, and a sword at the end, you're thrusting the sword. Does that make sense? Like, yes. you're inheriting the base properties. So you can't just say, okay, swap. You know, you open a chest and you're like, swap what's in there. I want to use it, or put it on the ground next to me, which, you know, becomes into play only because of this fusing mechanic. The going through the ceiling mechanic, I have found myself just like trying to exploit that as much as possible whenever I can, just jamming on that button.
That to me is maybe the wildest power.
I love
more
that
so
thing.
than the building stuff, because it's just like, it does feel like it just, you're cracking open their level design in a way that absolutely is intentional, but feels unintentional. You know what I mean?
That's another genre of viral video from this game. I mean, Twitter, obviously algorithms serve you things that you want to see already, but all I fucking see right now is viral videos of this game. Mm-hmm. And that's a whole other genre of them, is people exploiting that one.
Yes.
By like, I don't even know, like attaching like a hanging treasure chest to the bottom of a thing just to give you a surface that it'll let you warp through so you can... Mm-hmm. It's kind of why I'm trying to finish the first game, and before, like, I basically want to finish the normal one before I go play the ROM hack.
Yeah.
Because once you play the ROM hack, you can't go back and play the normal one anymore.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, though, if you wind up finishing that first one, I mean maybe you'll power through it and not, you know, I would say don't go completionist on it, but, you know, you'll want a certain amount of hearts to take on Ganon by the end, so you'll have to do some stuff. I wonder how you'll feel going into it. Like, that's a lot of Zelda. That's a lot of Breath of the Wild at that point. It might be too much, because how similar they are. Or maybe not. Maybe you'll be super excited to be able to jump through a wall. An
interesting experiment, let's say. I mean, I am one of those archetypal people who thinks it's one of the best games ever made. So
okay.
So I might have the appetite. I mean, like the magic is still there. I mean, first of all, like a lot of the discovery I went through 6 years ago. So I'm kind of moving through it faster, just because the novelty of the exploration and stuff has worn off.
Yeah,
but it's definitely hooked me again.
I have to remind myself of the abilities quite often, like especially the rewind time one. I always forget about that one, which is, comes into play in maybe fewer puzzles. It certainly
has its uses.
But it has its uses for sure. And especially in places where you're like, you have all these things that are kind of outlandishly powerful and, can really change the balance of the game in striking ways. And remembering you have them is often fun to remember that you're like, oh shit, I could just warp through this wall, or I could just rewind this thing back to where it came from is really fun. I mean, like I said, I'm enjoying the game. I just the parts that are so similar, I find too similar. It just feels more like an echo than a new note. Like I think I would have wanted something a little more striking in that department.
I mean, when you make one of the most beloved one of these ever, I think it is understandable that you would want to do a riff on that for the next one. And I think, to me, I mean, and granted, my opinion is being colored by the fact that I did not get that deep into the first one, but I think that what they have done here, at least in terms of mechanics, feels like it justifies doing another spin around this vision of Hyrule versus just trying to do a wholly new thing.
So it is not just this game that is going to be in this style. I don't know if you saw this Al Numa quote going around from this Game Informer interview last couple days, where he flat out said, like, hey, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are the new template for Zelda. Like, this is what we are doing going forward. Like, this very open, experimental, systems-driven thing is kind of the way forward. Like, he kind of low-key criticized the previous games, like Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword, like kind of flat out saying like they were too linear, too restrictive, like that kind of stifled our creativity. Like he basically implied we were having a way better time in designing this new style of open game.
I don't mind the structure. It's just the beat for beat stuff that is.
Yeah, I mean, when you got a sequel that's built this directly on the foundation of the previous game, like you would think that a next Zelda on a new Switch will probably be a clean slate in terms of at least world design and systems.
That's what I'm saying.
Like that. That quote also gave rise to a pretty amusing debate on Twitter about whether Zelda is an immersive sim now, which it's kind of hard to argue that it's not.
When you say immersive, you mean like rock and stick style?
Well, immersive sim traditionally is your System Shock, Thief, BioShock, Deus
play
Ex,
how you want style.
Yes, your numerous styles of play, all equally rewarded kind of thing.
I see. I thought you meant like more survival game. I see.
No.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, I can see that argument. Yeah, like you approach this situation numerous ways. I could see it. Look, I built carts that can roll like flaming explosives down into groups of enemies. It's fun and silly. This, I mean, no, I don't think anybody will argue with this. It's like a fan mod for Breath of the Wild, right? Like it is, hey, we changed all the shrines into these weird looking butt shrines, and we we put these new powers in to kind of do this thing, and it seems like so far, and again, I've only done the first temple, maybe this changes as we go. We reskin some of these areas for for the story that's happening here. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm gonna keep going with it. I don't know if I'm gonna fill out the compendium. I've been trying to take pictures of everything as I go. I really think for me personally, my completionist part, like having done that in Breath of the Wild, seeing that it's got even more in it and the whole thing's empty again, was just like Oh my gosh, I remember how tedious this was the first time to take a picture of every single weapon in the game.
Did you get anything for filling that thing out? I know you could use individual pictures to seek out more of that item with the little radar thing.
Yeah, I don't know if you got anything reward. Like, I don't know if there was a quest to fill out the compendium, but it was just part of
the reward is the satisfaction of a job well done.
I did not do all the Koroks. That's where the Korok seeds. That's where
this was like 900 and something of those.
Yeah. So I called it there, but it's Korok seeds here again. It's the compendium here again. Those systems are on place. There's new stuff, obviously, but that's all here again. And I think Majora's Mask, while lifts a lot of Ocarina of Time,
it's a pretty different game.
It's a weirder departure narratively and tonally.
With the moon and the cyclical time nature of the game, I've actually seen enough people talking about Outer Wilds in relation to that game that I've thought.
Sure,
I've thought recently that maybe I missed out. Like, maybe I just didn't give Majora's Mask the chance it deserved, considering how much I like Outer Wilds.
Yeah, still, I don't know. I went back and when the release came out and played more of it, and I played with my kids. Still a funky game, man. It's
no question.
Yeah, still a weird one. But yeah, Tears of the Kingdom. Would I give it a 5 out of 5? Probably. I probably would. Would I give it a 10 out of 10? I don't know.
Hang on.
Okay, wait a minute. Hang on. Do you know how fractions work?
I think so. I mean,
apparently not.
I'm not good at math. I would probably not give it a 4 out of 5, but I would probably give it a 9 out of 10, let's say. Does that make sense?
So 4.5 out of 5.
Are we allowed? I always get yelled at for doing halves.
Yeah, damn right you do. There are 5 stars. There are no more stars.
Yeah, honestly, I'd probably get an 8.5.
No half measures.
I'd give it an 8.5. 8.5. That's right.
Maybe I'd give it an 8.4. I don't know. I get it. I'm not far enough in it to make that kind of evaluation.
Honestly, neither am I. Like, I'm still fairly early on in this game. But
I'm into it, and that's the thing is that like with the Breath of the Wild, I had a hard time getting into feeling like I want to go back and play this over and over again. Whereas now it's like I'm now thinking like, okay, what nights do I have free so I can spend a couple hours at least playing this.
Yeah. Have you finished that first dungeon?
I'm about to go into that first dungeon.
Oh, okay. Does it feel like a longer, more traditional Zelda dungeon? Because like the Divine Beasts, obviously in the last one are kind of that, but not really.
It felt very similar to me. Similar
design
to the Divine Beasts.
Interesting.
Like I said, I was just getting, and maybe this is part of my horrible memory, just getting very like, really? Okay, this feels extremely similar. But again, don't get me wrong. I'm not
getting
saying
you wrong, Vinny.
I'm not saying I'm not enjoying it. B, that was maybe my favorite exploration parts because the powers come into such good use in the design there. They're explicitly designed to make use of these new powers and everything you have, and they're fun. It's a fun puzzle to solve. It's actually a well-designed dungeon, quote unquote, but it's not like go underground into a temple style thing. Which it's fine with me. That's not my issue. It's more just like it's just more like if you held up. So far, it feels like if you held up the narrative to a window, you'd see the old one coming right through it. Which is like
peering through the weird butthole portal.
Through the butthole portal, which again, from a Zelda game is fine, but for a sequel to a Zelda game feels a little bit more on the nose. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're going through and you're like, oh, okay, we're redoing Zelda, we're telling the tale of again, go get the Master Sword is fine. But for a sequel, I feel like you got to be a little bit from the path there. And they are doing interesting things.
They never do this.
They never do this really. I mean, this is not in their. I'm trying to think if they've done it on
like
mobile.
They use the graphical style from Wind Waker for a couple of those DS games, and they did. Obviously, Majora's Mask technically is a sequel to Ocarina of Time, but as you said, it is pretty different outside of some basic world design and graphic stuff. But like in terms of doing a direct sequel to a particular like the last Zelda game that came out. They very rarely do this.
It's Legend of Zelda right there, Link's Awakening, or
Link Between Worlds.
Link Between Worlds, yes, is pretty much a sequel.
Some games Link wakes up, some games Link goes to sleep. Some games take place between other games.
Well, look, Zelda 2, Adventures of Link. It's right there. Sequel,
and
right there.
That game could not be more fucking different than the first one. Is the point?
It's true. Yeah, I mean, when we talk about it on the stream, when we streamed it on Friday, and I said like I deny all attempts at creating an overarching Zelda timeline.
As well, you should.
Somebody in the Twitch chat had a good comment to the effect of like, it's one story because it's a legend. Like it's a legend. And so they are just like, you just need to look at it as they are telling the same legend over and over again with different trappings and different styles. But it is the same story.
I do like the narrative stuff. And actually, to its credit in this game, they are starting to pepper in more and more stuff that is interesting for a cohesive narrative. There is some stuff they are doing that's like, this could be interesting. I hope this pays off in a fun way. But yeah.
But you just know at the beginning of the next game. You just know, though, at the beginning of the next game, there's going to be some combination of the Master Sword and Link waking up and a Ganon of some form. Yeah. Whether he will be hot or not next time, who knows?
Ganon, hot or not.
That's the secret. Ganon was always hot.
He was always hot. Brad, do you think
even when he was the pig man?
Are you really going to try and make your way through this entire one before you? Where are you in Breath of the Wild? What beast of beasts?
I'm up to the first beast. Right now. But like I said, I'm doing less of the in-between stuff because I'm so enamored with that the first time I played it that I did a ton of that. And now I'm definitely seeing a little bit more of the repetition of like almost all these bokoblin camps are kind of the same thing. And the treasure chest you get at the end is not ever really worth it. Like you kind of don't have to do every environmental thing you come across.
Yeah.
So like that's the thing is revisiting it, I am realizing it is actually more structured than I remembered. And you could just kind of mainline it.
Yeah. Well, I think you just, I feel like there's a pretty decent skill trade-off. Like, hey, if you can play this game well enough, you can get through it with 3 hearts and no stamina.
Right. Yeah. And like, that's kind of one of the fascinating design things about it is like, if you go off, so I don't know how this game is. Like, do they railroad you to this first dungeon? Like, do they? Not at all?
No.
Did you just kind of pick that one randomly?
It's like 4B style. You have 4 points on your map, and they say you should go here first.
Okay. Yeah, they kind of say which village you should probably try and hit first. But
I guess railroad was too strong a word. That's kind of what the first game does as well.
I know.
It just says here's the 4, go do them. But when they tell you that, you are pretty close to one of them. Like, and the next quest you have leads you right to that one. So like. It's more that they soft guide you to one of the specific ones, even though you don't have to do that one. But like, it's one of the things I find fascinating about the game is if you go off script, like I went to the desert first instead of going to do that first beast right off the bat. Like the shrines out there are harder because they're not along the kind of golden path. But if you do those shrines, you come out of there with weapons that are straight up 10 times more powerful than the stuff you start with. Like you start with swords that are doing 4 or 5 damage, and I did one shrine out there. I came out of there with a sword with 50 damage.
Yeah.
Like a couple more with like 40 something.
Okay.
So like, kind of quote unquote sequence breaking that game. Like there is no smooth progression ramp. I mean, there is in the sense that the shrines, you have to do them one by one to get more hearts and stamina. But like if you go off the path in that game, you can kind of stumble into becoming way more powerful very quickly.
Yeah, it rewards exploration, which is a lot of fun. I mean, look, there are things that'll one-shot you as well, and that can be frustrating. Or you might hit narrative gates because it is a Zelda game, and you might need a power to get through a certain area. So I don't know about that in Tears of the Kingdom. I kind of went where they suggested. I don't know if I went the other way if I would have been locked out of a dungeon because I didn't have a power. I don't know that for sure. But this was definitely like, hey, here are 4 things we're going to need to do. Or you should investigate, let's say. And then I was just kind of went to the first one and I was like, let's talk about Breath of the Wild for a second. So I don't talk too much about Tears of the Kingdom. In Breath of the Wild, when you go to the Ancient, you're kind of going there and the Beast, you're kind of communing with the spirit from the battle that happened before, let's say, right? And you're like, oh, this in the first attempt to get Ganon, this person died in the battle, right? And you're communing with that spirit. And I found this to be a little too similar in a way that's like, okay,
It's like the setup for each dungeon.
Maybe I care too much about the story of Legend of Zelda, or maybe I don't remember it enough. But yeah, still interesting, still Zelda, still Breath of the Wild for sure, still enjoying it. But able to put it down in a way I wasn't expecting. My play sessions at times. That's The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, $70 out now, taking the world by storm. Getting a lot of love out there. Deservedly so. Sometimes these things come off as more negative than the criticisms than I mean for them to be, but
yeah, I mean, and look, here's the thing: it is taking the world by storm, but it's also coming out at a time when there are actually some good, significant games out too. So it's not doing it completely in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm. Now look, it's okay not to like it, and I'm not just convincing myself.
Seen some sales going around. I'm trying to confirm.
Looks like it. I think Nintendo has said it sold 10 million copies so far.
That was the number I thought. I was just trying to make sure.
That's quite a number.
That's a lot in 5 days.
That's quite a number. Let's. I wonder if they'll probably do another DLC pack for this. They did a couple for.
Yeah, there's 2 for the first one.
Yeah,
and the master mode.
What's that?
There's 2 DLC packs and the master mode for the first one.
Oh, master mode, right? That was free, right?
Or
did that come with something?
That might have been part of one of the DLC packs. I can't remember. Maybe it was free.
I can't remember either. Out now. You'll be hearing more about that as we go. I'm sure that game is not especially short, especially if I go and get all the compendium stuff, which I shouldn't, but I probably will.
Just do what you feel, man. Do what makes you happy.
I don't play video games because they make me happy, Brad. What do you?
It's not why we got into this, man.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to talk about a game that actually I haven't been able to put down in just a second. We're going to talk about humanity and some Cook Serve Forever. So stick around. We'll be right back. This week's show is brought to you by Factor, Alex and Brad. You know what I love possibly even more than video game? Spoilers, it's food.
Oh, well, I was going to say like pizza or something, so that checks out.
Yeah, that's a good guess. Pizza would be up there. I love food, but I don't always love cooking because it gets in the way of the other thing I love, which is playing video games and squeezing in all of that gaming time. But there is something that might be able to help. Might be a factor in getting me some more free time.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah,
well, if they're not paying us for that level of synergy.
Factor is America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, and it can help you save time, eat well, and tackle everything on your to-do list. With Factor, you can skip the trip to the grocery store and skip the chopping, prepping, and cleaning up, too. Now, my cleanups for cooking are notoriously bad. I use a bowl for every item. It's a big mess. It's no good. No good.
You're a messy Vinny.
Yeah, so the household thanks you, Factor. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes, so all you have to do is heat and enjoy, then get back out and do whatever you were doing. Or back on the couch, let's say, and do whatever you're doing, maybe in my case. With Factor, you can rest assured you're making a sustainable choice. They offset 100% of their delivery emissions to your door, source 100% renewable electricity for their production sites and offices, and feature sustainably sourced seafood in their meals. If you want to get in on all of this, you can head to factormeals.com/Nextlander40 and use code Nextlander40 to get 40% off your first box. That's code Nextlander40 at factormeals.com/Nextlander40 to get 40% off your first box. Thanks, Factor. All right, we are back, and as promised, we're here to talk about humanity.
It's in bad shape, man.
Hasn't been good in some time.
I have some doubts about humanity.
Well, I've got good news for you. You could just lead them all off a cliff.
I think they're doing a pretty good job of that on their own.
They don't need a little dog to lead them.
Don't think they need any guide. I don't think humanity needs any guidance to send itself over a cliff. The new video game from Enhanced Humanity, however, pretty good.
It is.
I'm really enjoying it. So when I get frustrated in Tears of the Kingdom, or when it's time for a break, I have picked up Humanity, and that usually winds up being the thing I spend more time with, or not more time with, but I really enjoy my time with it. I have a harder time putting down.
It's a good bite-sized kind of thing.
Yeah, it's literally the term to use, yes. Like, it's very easy to just dip into and play a couple levels and dip out. Did we talk about the demo on this podcast?
I think we very briefly did.
I think we did, so we have at least described this game before.
But it's worth reiterating.
For folks that don't know, it's you play as this little ghost-like dog apparition is your avatar, and you are leading hordes of people that want to walk in a straight line through a kind of rotatable, floating puzzle platformy like world, using things like turn signals, using things like jump signals, using things like float modifiers to kind of get them throughout this obstacle course. And in the a big important part, or one of the parts that's really fun for me, is along the way there are these kind of giant golden Oscar statue looking like people that are
the
Goldies, and they're usually the more complicated route through the level, and those are really fun to collect. And if you put enough people into the end portal, the level will end, and you will go on to the next level. And the nice thing about this game too is, I didn't realize this, Brad, when you were showing off the demo. If a Goldie is walking and you complete a level, it will complete the level, or it won't exit the level. You can keep going until the Goldie gets there.
That's like the main thing that is, I don't know if it's different from the demo, or I just didn't observe this somehow playing the demo. I mean, the demo was only like, 8 levels? And they were curated. They were not just the first 8 of this game. Maybe there weren't any levels in the demo that showed this, but yeah, like I was kind of shocked the first time that I finished a level with one of the Goldies, like part of my chain ready to go to the goal, but it just, you're basically filling up the goal. You see the goal like expand as it consumes human beings. And once it fills up, you finish the level. Like the revelation that, you can screw yourself by finishing the level too fast.
Yeah.
And like you kind of have to get a little creative in spots, or like get your timing down.
Yeah.
Like kind of break the flow here and there to make sure you don't send enough normal people into the goal before you get all the Goldies. The other thing that was not in the demo is there's this like kind of expansive progression system that uses the Goldies basically as kind of skill points.
Yeah.
Or it's actually almost like Battle Pass style. I hope the makers of this game are not cringing at that comparison, but it is a linear track left to right of like, get 5 Goldies, unlock this.
Yeah.
Get 10, get 8, unlock this, get 10. Yeah. And like the abilities are like pretty meaneful.
It ranges from like what seem like core abilities to cosmetics, you know?
Well, scrolling, so I think it goes all the way up to 150.
Oh, geez.
I believe was the end. Yeah, toward the end, it seems like it might mostly be cosmetics for your kind of online mode profile, like hats and stuff, so maybe less relevant stuff. But early on, they were straight up unlocking like extra camera controls and the ability to like save your command layout when you restart, stuff like that.
Which is great. That's a great one. Yeah, I've gotten into some hats and some different models, big head mode, but also being able to pause the thing is one of them. So
yeah,
it makes it very worth getting the Goldies.
Just the revelation coming from the demo that there is kind of more meta progression here and more nuance to how you solve these things. It's not purely a thinker, I guess I would say. There's also a little bit of like dexterity is not the right word, but
there is dexterity.
There's timing for sure.
Again, there is a timing element to this. It's not purely just script your route and then press go and let it go.
Yeah,
like you're gonna have to watch the flow of people toward the goal and be ready to drop a command in at the right time to divert and stuff like that. It's interesting.
I'm up to I just finished, I think, the sequence 2, which has a lot of pushing of blocks, and you have to actively stop people from, your horde from pushing a block. So you only want them to push in one square. You have to immediately, after they push that square, put a reverse marker in to stop them, and you're doing that quite a bit, and having to micromanage that line. At first I thought it was going to be really cumbersome and tedious, but I kind of got used to it and really enjoyed it.
failure does not feel overly punishing in this game. Like the resets are pretty quick, and it doesn't feel like, at least in the stages that I've played so far, I think I'm like a chunk of the way through sequence 2, but it doesn't feel like it's really like you're doing a million things and then suddenly it all goes wrong at the end and you're just like frustrated. Like I have not, even where I've been failing, I have not felt like I was just getting like annoyed at what I was doing.
There's another amusing detail I don't remember from the demo, which is they point out at one point, they were like, hey, people will just pour right over the side if you don't stop them, but don't worry, they'll reemerge from the entrance soon enough or something like that. And
some reincarnation stuff.
Because there is like this weird feeling of like, I'm just letting hundreds of people fall to their deaths right now by not doing this right. So they go out of their way to be like, don't worry, they're not dying. They're coming right back.
People have been falling to their deaths for thousands of years. We're not doing anything that humanity has not been doing to itself over and over and over again.
You know, it's funny. They say that in the narrative with, was it the blue orb or whatever that is kind of guiding you?
There's all this like kind of afterlife imagery of you're sort of sending people to heaven.
So they say that there. And then in another place, I think I saw something that's like, humans perished or something that was just like okay, I'm gonna stick with what you told me and that they just come back out the door. I'm actually up to I just remembered what I'm up to is quote unquote a boss fight, so which is kind of interesting, a boss puzzle.
The trophies imply that there are several of those,
so that's interesting. My one frustration point I will say is there are points where you have a fairly complicated system. You've gone through and had to, time things correctly. And then one stray human will, just by the nature of the flow mechanics of the humans, will miss a thing, not from anything you did, will just like clip the side of something or turn off away and touch the Goldie before you wanted it to, right? And that's super annoying because it's like, that's not anything I did. It's because when they landed from the float or something like that, the stream of people push this person off to the side, one person off to the side, and it clipped the Goldie. And then you have to reset the whole thing, which resetting with the markers really helps, but sometimes you're changing markers a bit. But that's really, it's kind of a minor thing. It hasn't happened all that often. When it does, it's just frustrating. It's not my favorite part of it. But I played in VR as well. I think VR is awesome in that game. If you have the ability to try it out, this is on PC, on Steam, and does support VR there as well as on the PlayStation 5. It's cool. It's
and we said this was enhanced, but this is actually another developer, THA Limited, which, as far as I can tell, this is their first game. But that said, everything about this game, both mechanically and like philosophically, feels like it belongs directly in the Ms. catalog. Like it feels very much part and parcel with the kinds of games he has traditionally made.
Yeah, well, it was a collaborative effort, from what I understand. They kind of co-developed.
Yeah,
it's got a cool soundtrack, a great visual style. It's a lot of fun. The puzzles are very clever. Getting those Goldies. There was one. It has You can look at a solution video in game if you would like. It does warn you before you did it. I was at the point where I was going to look at one, and it's like, hey, you can look at this. We are going to track how many of these you have looked at, just so you know. And I was like, oh, okay.
That's good to know, because I have not been brave enough to even click on that yet.
I did. There was one part I tried, like, I was just banging my head against getting that last Goldie. And I was like, I don't really understand. Or I was at the point where I was like, does the game... It was a really interesting part of the game where I was like, does the game really want me to do this? And I did wind up solving it on my own, and then looked up a video of it, and I was like, holy shit, I did it the way that this other person did. The game does want me to play it like this. It was much more kinetic and much more kind of frantic switching of what would you call the signals,
I basically have just been in my mind calling them traffic signals.
Sure, yeah. Much more frantic changing of the traffic signals. I was like, that game can't want me to have to do it this quickly. And I was like, holy shit, no, this is
they
what
super do.
This is what it was asking of me. To get that Goldie at least.
Don't worry. The online mode is full of course, anytime you give people level creation tools, the first thing you're going to get is a huge number of autoplay levels.
Oh, okay.
They're straight up as an autoplay tag.
Okay. I haven't gone online yet.
And they don't lock out the experience level from the autoplay levels.
Oh.
So if you want to boost your online level, quite a bit.
Okay.
Maybe it caps at some point. I don't know. But I just literally searched by the autoplay tag. I'm just sitting there, just like going through one automatic level after another, watching my level go up. I think all it unlocks is new hairstyles and colors and hats and stuff for your avatar. I don't think there's anything else you get there.
Yeah, the Goldie stuff in the single player is definitely worth going through that line there. If you can get as many as you can. They also, it should be noted, they do a video game, hey, you need this number of Goldies to progress into the next section. So you do have to get at least some. You can't just kind of ignore all of them, or you can't progress to the next level. And there is a narrative there for what it's worth so far. Yeah. It's weird.
It feels like the kind of narrative you would get in something from this studio. Like there is a threadbare storyline, but it is really more about kind of delivering a vibe and a philosophy.
Yes, very much. Yes.
My favorite comparison I saw someone make online is that it's Lemmings by way of Koyaanisqatsi, that art film that is just a lot of shots of people moving through the world. And you know what? Yeah, that actually kind of feels like what they were doing here.
Is that I don't think I know that one. Is that like a Baraka-esque?
There's like a Qatsi trilogy, and Koyaanisqatsi I think is the first one.
Okay. It's really striking once you see the fountains of people.
That's actually another good reason to go online. Not that there are like super complex crowd behaviors in here. It's mostly just people walking in straight lines, but still like seeing some of the user-made designs out there. Like I'm on PS5, but I've actually found a level that managed to bring the frame rate down pretty hard.
I could see it.
From the number of people they were spawning on screen. It seems, I don't know if this is user definable, but it seems like there might be a maximum number of people on screen because like they stopped at some point.
Oh, wow.
They stopped coming out of the emitter, and I don't know if that was scripted or not, but
okay.
You can get a lot of people walking around on screen at one time. It's like kind of cool to see.
It's fun. It's like people circuits, It's a weird thing. Like I've had people just spinning in circles to keep buttons down, and just be like, "Well, I'm sorry, you're lost all time. You're not going to ascend. Maybe someday for you.
Someday.
You're just a button holder." That's Humanity. That's $30 available. I didn't check the price on the PlayStation 5, but it's $30 on Steam, available on the PlayStation and Steam. Again, VR support there for both of those platforms if you got it. Finally, I played some Cook Serve Forever. I'm a big fan of the Cook Serve Delicious franchise. This is not Cook Serve Delicious, and I think it's important to know that before you go in. This one's $30. It's in early access right now. Art style's great, vibe is great, music's great. Gameplay is different than a Cook Serve Delicious, and I found it to be, right now, I'd say the gameplay is it's not like super engaging. It's a little maddening sometimes. It's basically you're doing button sequences. So you're just doing like push A 3 times, now push B, now push Y. But it's clever and insidious sometimes. It'll be push A and now push B a questionable amount of times, and then push, and then it'll just move you on to the next one, or push any button, but then then the next thing will be like push the previous button you pushed, or push any button and don't push the previous button you pushed. So like it's that level of stuff, and you're just rapid firing through these things. It's fairly light in that mechanic sense. It doesn't have the same kind of short order cook franticness that I think a Cook Serve Delicious has had before, where you're like, put the fryer down, make the stuff, take out the garbage, and do all this stuff. So it's very different than that. It's a different game, and you should know that before going in. Maybe check out a movie or something. We'll play some of it too on the grab bag to kind of show you. That said, the trappings are it's like a chill game. I really like the vibe on it. The mechanics, I think I'm engaging with less than the overall vibe of the game. And it's in early access, so they have a roadmap. No local co-op yet on the game, but like I said, art style, music, top notch.
It's got the flavoring, if not the exact, let's just say not the exact meat that you're used to.
Yes, nicely done. Yes,
food.
I get you. Yeah, food. Cook Serve Forever. Not too much more to say there, but just beware that it's not Cook Serve Delicious 4. This is a different thing. It's like a side.
God, I forgot they made 3 of those beforehand.
Hell yeah. They're all very good.
I knew there was at least 2. I forgot that they made a 3rd one.
Yeah. Soundtrack's always amazing in those games, and this one is also very good. And again, no local co-op yet in the early access, but it's on the roadmap in case you're going in for that, which I play with my kids and they're fun. This one doesn't have it yet on the horizon, hopefully. That's Cookstare Forever. That's $30 in early access. I think there's a discount now, too, if you want to go check it out. That's also Tears of the Kingdom and Humanity. I think that's going to do it for the games. I'm going to take another quick break here, and we'll be right back with the news. Stick around. And we're back, and it is time for the news. Things are happening out there. Let's start.
As they often are.
As they often are. The world did not decide to just pause everything for the release of The Legend of Zelda, though a lot of things did seem to move out of the way. One thing that I feel like they wish they could have moved out of the way is this Overwatch news. Just kind of coming out to the GameSpot story and interview, Timur talking to some of the Overwatch 2 team specifically here, let's say, about their, is it fair to say, highly anticipated PVE stuff? Because
that's kind of my big question coming into this that maybe Alex can speak to more, like given the way Overwatch 2 has gone, were people even still excited or thinking about this?
I'm not the best bellwether as far as like what the overall tone of the Overwatch community is, because I checked out of Overwatch 2 pretty fucking fast. But I did play a lot of Overwatch 1. What I will say is that from what I remember about how they announced this and how they've been promoting it up until, right up until they announced last year that the PVE mode, which is the thing we are discussing here, would not be launching alongside the game. I think there has been a mixture of trepidation, but also hope that this thing would come out in a state that would justify the fact that they made Overwatch 2 instead of just continuing to update Overwatch 1, because this was a big selling point for why there needed to be a sequel versus an update of a refresh of the existing game.
Yeah, so they, just to make it explicitly clear, they have canceled the PVE Hero Mode. I think that's how they refer to it.
Yes.
Did GameSpot break this news? It's unclear to me.
It seemed like they did. I'm not sure if they were like literally the ones who broke the story, but they seemed like they had the most in-depth coverage of it from the start. Yeah,
they've got the interview with the director and producer kind of right here at the announcement.
And the thing that makes this kind of crazy, apart from just the fact that they are excising this mode seemingly entirely, is that they were still saying it was coming and updates would be coming on what this was going to be pretty recently, like within the last few weeks.
Yeah, that's the part where this gets pretty rough. Like if they hadn't talked about it for 2 years or something, this would be more like, oh yeah, okay, of course that was coming.
But I'll say this, because there's a pretty exhaustive, you should go check out the GameSpot interview. Timur does a pretty good job and asks really good questions there. There's a lot of dancing around what is going on here. So I would like to just read Timur's back and forth, because he does a pretty good job of just laying this out. I think this is Timur. It's credited as GameSpot, but Timur is credited as the author on the story. So I don't want to give wrong credit here, but says that this is Timur or GameSpot. The big talking point is the direction that you're now talking with the PvE. That you basically aren't doing it. Is that the correct way to characterize it? Great question.
It's not happening anymore. This is the question.
It's not happening anymore, and you've pivoted away from it. That's the question. And Aaron Keller from the team says, I think I would characterize it slightly differently, which is we are doing part of what the team had set out to do, but not the entirety of what was discussed back at BlizzCon 2019. So the real focus is on the story mission and that experience, as opposed to the more open-ended hero mode and that stuff. And then he goes on to say, so it's fair to say that the experience that you showed during that first Overwatch 2 reveal is not going to be the one that will be released at any point. They answer back, Yeah, exactly. So we are definitely not doing the hero mode and the talent and that power progression system.
It's like, as you say, you would characterize it slightly differently, but I think you're actually characterizing it exactly the same.
It's a great, like, hey, I'm going to be crystal clear here. Are you not doing this? And
there's definitely a little bit of, depends on what your definition of the word is, you know, like there's just definitely a little bit of like language bebop happening here, but so, I mean, the key thing here is that what they're talking about still doing is the stuff they have been doing, which is to say these event-based things where you will team up with other players and take on usually these seasonal challenges that involve some light narrative and some, you know, like AI-controlled enemies and stuff that you're fighting. And they've been doing that since Overwatch 1 in various forms. But the thing they were talking about here, this PVE mode, the thing that was the much ballyhooed concept was something that was a lot more elaborate. Yeah. It had a whole progression system to it,
new talents
of new talents that you would get like going through here, like literally like more than, you know, something like 20 talents per hero or something. And that all sounded really interesting and potentially very exciting, but they had, because of the way they announced that it wasn't coming when the game launched and the way that this has kind of gone down here, this all reads to me very much like we overextended ourselves. We tried to do something that we were not, we hoped would come together, very much did not, and it was either pull the plug on this and redouble our efforts into making sure that the multiplayer and the event stuff that we do is as good as it can be, or we potentially throw something out there that is just not going to hit for people in the way that we hope it will. And I think ultimately they probably are making the right decision here, but if that's really what went down here, but this puts them in a very awkward position because the thing you sold this game as, and you had been hyping this game up as, even post-launch, is now not that. And a bunch of people that went and got this game now are like, okay, well, I didn't get it sold an entire bill of goods because I can still do the multiplayer and you have been putting content in this game and stuff has been happening, but potentially a thing that I was potentially very excited for is just not happening now. And it makes them look even more disorganized than Blizzard has looked in recent years, which is not great.
Yeah, I mean, this team has had a fair amount of turnover, right?
Yes, it has.
That's like Jeff Kaplan is gone. And
didn't he come back at some point, but then I think he left again?
I would believe that at this point.
Yeah, the Blizzard team and Activision Blizzard and the bigger umbrella has a lot of those folks, I feel like, because it was who came back recently on the WoW team?
Metzen.
That was Metzen, and he is back,
Metzen, okay.
Or did he leave again?
No, he's still there.
He's still there?
Okay.
I
know, but I mean, it sounds like he's in some kind of creative advisory role.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, Kaplan did just leave. He has not come back.
I don't know too much about Overwatch 2. Aside, it is free, it is a free game. I know there was a lot of uproar over, just again, anecdotally, the switch from Overwatch to Overwatch 2, where a lot of people didn't feel it was necessarily at the time a justified switch. Again, I'm not in that community, so I can't speak to it that well. But this was appealing to me as somebody who doesn't play a lot of PvP and who does more PvE stuff with family and things like that. So while I am still interested to see what they do in the PvE arena, if they do take them at their word and they have other plans involved, reading through this interview, and again, it's fairly long and good questions are asked, I came away with the sense that this was known around the launch of Overwatch 2, that this wasn't going to happen like they had been promoting it. And to not message that at that point, I get it, you're trying to make Overwatch 2 seem like a different product, but to have to go and say that this was known that we were switching gears away from this hero mode at the time of the launch and still promoting that stuff is not great.
No, it's not. And again, I think the bigger problem is that a lot of the things that Blizzard has tried to do with Overwatch since it broke big have not panned out quite the way they hoped. And I'm not even just talking from like a game content perspective. Like, by and large, I feel like with Overwatch 1, even if I didn't love every change they made or, every hero they added or whatever, I feel like they did a pretty all right job of ramping that thing up and making it feel like it was still alive, years after the fact that after it came out. But like stuff like Overwatch League came around, and while they dumped a ton of money into that stuff, it never became quite as big as they were hoping it would. And then with Overwatch 2, it's like they made a perfectly cromulent multiplayer game that is, I'm going to say in some ways slightly better maybe than Overwatch 1 was, but not by leaps and bounds. But they were selling this thing, and they did not deliver the extra thing that they said they were going to be putting alongside, like, as part of this package and justifying the sequel. It feels like a lot of the decisions they are making to try and expand and build Overwatch into something other than just a thing where 5 heroes fight 5 heroes are just not quite panning out the way they want to. And it's just making this franchise feel a little bit, I don't know, it's just bumpy in a way that it seems like it shouldn't be. Like, maybe they're just overextending themselves. Maybe they're trying to turn into something it's just not meant to be. I don't know. But it just feels like they don't have a full handle on this thing.
I also don't know. We don't have great insight, we should say. I genuinely don't, into what is going on inside those studios during all. No. It's a tumultuous time inside.
And I want to be clear. I'm not blaming the developers for this. Like, it's like stuff doesn't work out all the time in game development. And if a thing is really not going to ship the way you want it to, sometimes you have to make these kinds of hard decisions. It's just that the messaging around it, the way that they have framed this game, I think has done those developers a great disservice in terms of like what kind of product they are actually able to deliver.
Yeah, and like it kind of leads to more ending with this very pointed question at the end here of like, hey, Blizzard has been maybe the most aggressive in the entire industry about killing stuff off that's not working before it comes out, that like just slashing and burning stuff that you think is going to impact the level of quality that you deliver to your audience. Except now, like, why is this different? What does this say about Blizzard? Essentially, that you're now at the point of promoting things for years on end and then just killing them unceremoniously,
Right. Yeah, Blizzard, go look at StarCraft Ghost, right? The most notorious, thing that just Blizzard probably has ever done that never saw the light of day.
I saw that game. I was on a preview event for that game. I
played it. Yeah, I played it.
Yeah.
At least once, maybe twice. And there's a build of it out there now. A couple years ago. I think a build of Warcraft Adventures also got out at some point.
Great. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not that big into Overwatch. At least Overwatch 2 is free. People didn't.
Yes.
But people have put money clearly into money.
Because they're still selling season passes. Like they are still like charged. Like there's still money being dumped into those games.
Right. So if I don't know, if you got into Overwatch and you got into the season stuff and put money into it with the expectation of the PVE stuff, I'm not sure. I don't know how I would feel if I invested that time into it.
The money you were putting into that game was not anything that was supposedly going to be feeding into the PvE thing. Like, right. The PvE thing was going to be its own separate deal that was, obviously part of the package, but it was going to be like a thing that was kind of separate from the whole multiplayer experience of that game, or at least, the PvP aspect of it. But, I do think that this really does feel like the wind up to turning this into a sequel as opposed to an update probably got derailed a lot earlier than people realized, and they just waited until the last possible second to tell people that, like, actually this is not coming together.
Yeah, it's not a great tale.
No.
That's Overwatch's 2 PVE mode, specifically the hero stuff. Sounds like that is kind of dead in the water. What they continue to do on the PVE front, I don't know.
They'll keep doing their seasonal events, I'm sure, but that's probably going to be it for at least the foreseeable future.
You can check that story out on GameSpot.com. A story that's been in the news also, I don't think we have covered it here, but Vice. It's weird. It's one of those things where we talk to the Waypoint folks personally a lot, so sometimes that stuff doesn't make it onto the show as we are in just kind of, personal conversations with people. But I don't know if we have talked about Waypoint.
We haven't on here, no.
Waypoint shutting down, and all the folks there. We've been in contact with them. Obviously, best wishes to everyone who was affected by that, and the Waypoint closure. And now we are at the point where it sounds like it had been rumored, and we are at the point where Vice is actually filing for bankruptcy and looking. It sounds like, according to the story I read here, Brad, that you put, which is a story coming out of Motherboard. Which is a Vice property, that they are looking to get sold as quickly as possible for somebody to kind of basically pick up the tab in business terms always are very weird and funny, but this one with the stalker, what was it? Stalker horse? What is the exact term there?
Stalking horse.
Stalking horse. Which basically means
stalker horse is something else. That's a horse that's been in the zone, man.
Which I mean, listen, I don't mean to laugh. This is very serious. A lot of people's jobs are on the line, but like, what a term. Sounds like you try to have a buyer lined up before you go into auction at the bankruptcy level, so that as soon as you pull that trigger, somebody's there to scoop it up. You still have to have the auction. Again, I'm not a business person. I'm going off of the story here on Vice, or Motherboard specifically, but that's what it sounds like. Vice. Kind of an insane. I mean, we just had, I don't think we talked about it here either. We just had MTV News also kind of stop, which I didn't know MTV News was actually still going, to be honest. But MTV News. Vice, I feel like kind of, for me, feels like a successor to that, like trying to do news to appeal to a different audience than your primetime, stodgy newscast.
Well, yeah, but also we're talking about different eras of Vice here, because original Vice was very much like, Brooklyn hipster, like, coke-addled, like sarcasm and, fashion analysis and, the Vice Guide to Travel and a lot of other weird stuff that was like very specifically targeted at very cynical Gen X people who were, kind of getting into their 20s and 30s in the early 2000s. And then they kind of started to build more and more apparatuses for like legitimate news reporting and, an HBO TV show. And they had their own TV network. I think technically still, I don't know if Viceland TV is still actually on cable television or if it's just pivoted entirely to web at this point. But like Desus and Mero got their TV start there. Like, there have been a bunch of different iterations of Vice over the years, and the tone of it definitely shifted pretty radically when they started to try and become more legitimate and less Gavin McInnes. And, I'm not sure that Vice was ever really, as a company, built for to be a mainstream media conglomerate, but they did some really wild and interesting stuff over the years, and also some very bad stuff over the years. And it just feels like the current model that they had was just not able to weather the existing economy, despite the fact that they have a lot of very talented people there doing very good work.
Yeah, there's just kind of a shocking downturn in online media at the moment. Like BuzzFeed News is another one that just got shut down, which did a lot of serious reporting despite BuzzFeed's prior reputation.
Yes.
But, in the case of Waypoint, obviously it is extremely disappointing that even with I can't say how well the subscription business was doing, but presumably well-ish.
Well, enough that they kept doing it.
Still not enough to sustain you at a company
especially with a team
being managed into the ground.
And a team that wasn't that big. Like, it's not like Waypoint was, some bloated apparatus of Vice that, took a whole bunch of resources. It was a handful of people doing very scrappy work, with what they were given. And I feel like, as someone that worked at another fairly scrappy website that did pretty good work and turned in pretty good business despite the fact that we got almost fucking nothing, I felt like they were doing some pretty wild and interesting and innovative and worthwhile stuff there. And it just absolutely sucks ass to see that stuff get folded over because the rest of the company can't keep the business going.
There were loose conversations between Giant Bomb and Vice. And nothing super formal, but like, Vice was in a position at a point where they were trying to expand. And if you look at this list of, my dog agrees, if you look at this list of debitors and stuff, they borrowed a lot of money from a lot of places, and seems like they had a lot of trouble paying those debts back. And even down the list, I mean, this article goes into even things like the enterprise services that they still owed money to, which include, everything from Workday to Adobe to Amazon Web Services that are going to be looking to recoup money on a Chapter 11. I don't know the specifics of New York stuff, and maybe there's people in our audience who do know about who gets paid off first in a Chapter 11. If it doesn't get sold out right away, I'm hoping it's employees and severance take priority over, enterprise service contracts and stuff like that. But I don't know. So that stuff can be scary on whether, what the state laws are in terms of paying debts off and priority if they
I mean, I don't know this for certain, but I do think that part of the reason maybe they announced the layoffs when they did was so that those people could make sure they got their severance and whatever before
I hope so.
Things went into the bankruptcy for, proceedings. But that's also me hoping that someone over there is paying enough attention and cares enough to make sure that was happening versus just like happenstance.
Yeah. And, I'm sure the employees there, even maybe up in the upper levels don't even know like what's going on. I'm sure this is lawyers and accountants talking to each other and people screaming at each other also. Considering
publicly the Waypoint folks have said they were told early in the day that the layoffs were announced that they, that they were safe and then suddenly they were not. That says to me that maybe it was not a fully organized thing and people did not, the right hand did not know what the left hand was doing. I think, again, we don't know much about this side of things, but the thing we probably could look at from our experience, our personal experiences, is what do you do with a vice? Let's even say, what is Vice's place in this world?
That's what I'm saying. Like we've seen media companies get sold around. We were part of them. They get sold around. Like you don't want this to necessarily go to some thing that is going to lose all of the flavor that Vice was, or the personality that Vice was trying to go for. That being said, but I think Brad, you said it, the landscape here is just not as it was, 10 years ago. So.
No, I mean, this is, Waypoint getting shut down comes like what? It was like 5 weeks after Launcher. Just speaking of other video game verticals within large corporate media, like Launcher at the Washington Post just got shut down right before this. Like it's just
it's a bloodbath out there
specifically in the video game space. It's a very bad time to be working in corporate media.
So yeah, I don't know if they are trying to look for a buyer. I'm really curious to see what brand wants to absorb that as Vice, like to continue to do what Vice was doing, which is basically reporting in a time when I don't know if the monetization of reporting is sustainable. I don't know.
Yeah.
My last word on this is, if you can, support the people that you like following. So get out there. That is not a self-serving pitch. Thank you, everybody, for supporting us. But it is also true that, there probably are going to be folks out there in this, as this continues to go, that are going to be to the wins. And whether you support them by encouraging or support them financially, it's kind of important.
I mean, if I was them, I would maybe not immediately want to jump into another corporate media job, but
I don't know. Health insurance is very expensive.
That is, yeah. It's just, man, it's just fucking, it's a nightmare out there right now.
It's pretty tough out there.
In media in general, but also on the game space, it does feel like everything is contracting to an alarming degree.
It feels like it's either contracting or shifting where it's not even games coverage, it's
guides coverage.
Or
that is not me throwing shade at guides editors. That is important work, but I'm saying at a certain point, it seems like a lot of these companies are making the calculation that this is the thing that drives the traffic. So that's literally the only thing we're going to pay for.
Or like, more entertainment and recap stuff, there's a lot of that. Just covering the MCU, basically that beat. Okay, that's Vice. Best of luck to everybody out there. Support the people that you enjoy reading and following. This news kind of coming in fairly hot. Brad Shoemaker, by the time people are listening to this, they might know more than we do.
This was a story about teasers and leaks and data mining with regard to the new Mortal Kombat, but then an hour before we started recording, the Mortal Kombat Twitter account just flat out said, hey, the reveal is tomorrow morning. So
fantastic.
Basically, about the time this podcast posts, the listeners of this podcast will know exactly what the next Mortal Kombat is, but we are still merely left to speculate for now.
Well, can I ask you, Brad Shoemaker, and Alex Navarro, Mortal Kombat loreists out there, this article that you linked here, Brad, on windowscentral.com posits, and I didn't even think about this until I read it, that this reboot, the teaser was basically a clock going from 11 and skipping 12 going right to 1, which led a lot of people to say, hey, this looks like it's going to be some kind of reboot, and then that was confirmed.
Yeah, they started even before that. There was this 30th anniversary video they did a couple weeks ago, which was mostly a bunch of clips of team members just going like, thank you for 30 years and stuff. But at the end, there was some like grain of sand imagery As if from an hourglass at the end of that thing that already kind of got people speculating about some kind of reboot or timeline reset or whatever you want to call it. But then, yes, this clock thing is like, come on, man.
It's pretty good. It's good imagery.
It's like, who are you fooling? Nobody. It's pretty obvious.
So that stuff then got confirmed, yeah?
Well, no. The nature of the game still has yet to be confirmed. I mean, this report is corroborating. There was some like data mining leak stuff that said, hey, the title of the next game is Mortal Kombat 1.
Okay, that's what I was talking about.
And then this Windows Central story, which is Alexander Cope and Jez Corden, who certainly have reported on leaks and rumors in the past, are corroborating it, saying, yes, we can also confirm that's the name of the game. That clock thing is a second hand going from 9 to 10 to 11, which were the last 3 games, and then blowing past 12 straight to 1. Come on, man.
Like, so the thing
seems pretty likely.
The thing that this article asks, is because the details aren't out there, and I'll ask this to you guys, a reboot certainly could happen. You know, they've set that up in 11, and they've kind of reset the timeline, or a prequel which would go back to maybe even earlier than the game's Mortal Kombat 1 to maybe earlier Mortal Kombat tournaments. What do you think the likelihood of that is?
I don't know. I don't know what this is. I'm dying to find out, but they've kind of done the reboot already. Like 9 was that. 10 kind of went off in its own direction, and I think is by far the weakest of this current trilogy. 11 has all kinds of time fuckery in it, but it still is trading 99% on your nostalgia for the first 3 games, which is, you know, the other games have their fans, but like those are the games, right? So to go right back again to rebooting again, but again, like maybe it's something super weird and unexpected and not just another retelling of the original game. I don't know.
That's what I think it is. And this is just me like spitballing here, but this is what I think they're probably going to do, is that a reboot of 1 does not mean we are retelling the story of 1. It means we are bringing familiar things we know from the original Mortal Kombat, you know, like lineage. But now that we have the ability to totally reshape this however we want, there will definitely be some stuff in there that is brand fucking new. It has to be.
That I think, like Brad said, that also just feels like 9 and 10 and 11. But also, do you do a Mortal Kombat without Johnny Cage and Scorpion and Sub-Zero? I don't know.
Yeah, and that's that. I mean, you could. You shouldn't. You can do it without Quan Chi. I can tell you that much right now. But you shouldn't do it without those guys. But the thing is, like, again, and this is not, we're not going to get into the details here, just in case you haven't finished Mortal Kombat 11 story mode, you absolutely should. But because they leave everything so open-ended, even with the DLC stuff they added at the end, like, that's an addendum. That doesn't really give you a serious notion of, like, how they're going to direct this next thing. I really hope what they're going to do is they're going to take the familiar elements and make something completely new out of it.
Yeah, that's kind of what they need to do. I mean, if you think about how 9 worked, this kind of recalls the Zelda conversation, frankly, because, like, even 9 had that framing device of, like, oh, we're going back from future events and reliving these old events. Like, the characters, at least some of them, like, I think Raiden was one of them, knew they were reliving past events. Like, that was literally a meta story of, we have to play this out again, we have to go through these motions again to save the world or whatever. So they've already done a little bit of let's take the familiar and put a twist on it. So yeah, I think they would have to go way further this time to get away with it again. At the same time, 11 is so damn good that I'm totally willing to show up for whatever they do to see it.
There's only so many directions you can go from literally making the concept of time your villain. Like, personifying time as an evil wizard who sounds like a fucking strain of weed, and like making her literally just break as many timelines as possible before you come in and break them again. Yes, I'm talking about Chronica.
Yeah, I just want to make sure people know. Yeah, the Chronica.
Yes, but I think they're smart enough to know they can't just rehash this shit again, because they've done it. They did it so well the last time that I think even in greater fidelity, even with more content with a K, it's just not enough.
Well,
yeah. Yeah, I don't know what else to say until we see what this is. I'm dying to find out what it is, but
we'll know soon enough.
Yeah.
11 is weird because it's an incredible game, but also they escalated things to the point that it almost felt like it had to be the last Mortal Kombat. Like where do you even go from there? But obviously they've got something.
Like, the only step up they can get to at this point is if you are literally fighting God. Because so far, Kronika is the most powerful being that is, but it is also unclear whether she is the god of all gods or just the god that made the Mortal Kombat gods.
There's always a more elder god.
Yes, in their pantheon, they're like titans, right?
The Mortal Kombat gods are essentially her children.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember where the elder gods fall and all that stuff. Yeah. Somewhat unclear.
But also, is there also just literal Christian bearded god, like, above her somewhere? And it's just like Kronika is like his ex-wife. Like, what do we... I don't know. That's the thing. Know. How do you escalate from there? That's what I'm hoping they figure out.
Yeah, like Liu Kang had also pretty much become a god by the end of 11.
That's right.
Yeah.
Maybe you fight death also and you become immortal. I don't know. People who are listening to this on Thursday might already know. So...
I think that the weirder part of this report to me is the thing about DLC characters.
I thought that was kind of funny.
Which, I mean, they've been doing this forever, putting like movie monster villains and stuff like that in MK through DLC.
RoboCop.
But this idea of putting Homelander from The Boys in there.
You could see it, though.
Like, well, yes. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, obviously, Mortal Kombat has had a lot of sinister villain figures over the years.
Uh-huh.
But that character is just so utterly repugnant. Like... It feels like it's risking getting into the, like, people think Walter White is the hero territory.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, okay.
I mean, this is, like, it's genuinely one of the most disturbing characters I've ever seen in fiction because it is literally a psychopath with truly unfettered power.
Right.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
but, I mean, like, spiritually, is he that much worse than Leatherface?
No, except that Leatherface can be killed, I guess. Presumably.
Yeah. Well, they'll find ways to kill this guy, I'm sure, in just incredibly nightmarish, visceral ways that will haunt you and essentially the people that worked on the fatalities.
Maybe it'll be very satisfying to rip Homelander's spine out and hold it aloft. That's
Is The Boys a DC comic?
Who put that out?
I don't know.
It might be
published by Wildstorm.
Yeah, it might have been put out by somebody who was subsequently
DC Comics owns Wildstorm, so there
DC?
you go.
Okay.
So that I mean, okay, there's your immediate obvious tie-in, though also I might have expected. Honestly, I'm kind of shocked they're going just straight to MK next. Not because I love Injustice that much and I can't wait for them to get back there, but like I just thought they might have continued to alternate as opposed to just going straight back to Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, I kind of had the same expectation, but it's hard to speculate when decisions got made, much less why. But I wonder if the turmoil in the DCU maybe had anything to do with it. You know?
Yeah.
The likeness stuff. I forgot about that. I was just
gonna say they wonder if they're holding off to like secure all their likeness stuff before they move forward.
God, that's a nightmare for everyone involved. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Because they did have that quote, right, with the unifying the likenesses.
That's what they want to do. Yes.
Yeah. Well, but also the timeline makes it sound, or the development timeline seems like they probably started on this game right after 11.
Right.
Because it has not been that long.
Yeah, this article posits a possible September 2023, but they also, they go out of their way to say that that's, that could change.
Of course it could. But the thing is, right now, the current indication seems to be that we might be getting new games from the three biggest fighting game franchises in the world this year, which is kind of wild.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts. Yeah, 11 was also a pretty quick announce to release.
We'll see.
So I
don't
believe this.
I don't even know which one I'm more excited for. All three of these games actually seem really exciting to me.
Street Fighter 6 seems really interesting for the first time in a while for a Street Fighter game. But I think it's got to be this one for me, just because what they did with the last one was so outlandish that I am like, whether I end up liking the new game or not, I'm just so fascinated to see what they came up with to follow that up.
I think that's what it is. It's the follow-up from 11 for me that makes me excited about MK, whatever number they're going to attach to this thing. It's how long Tekken 7 was good that has me really curious about what they're going to do for 8, like what they're keeping, what they're changing, all that stuff. And then the fact that Street Fighter V just did not really hit for me. Now I'm like, oh, they're taking Street Fighter in some interesting new directions. I'm curious about what they've done there. It's different approaches, different reasons for being excited. But I think all those games could potentially be great.
It's Mortal Kombat for me by a long shot, even though I'm not a huge Mortal Kombat combat person, like the competitive playing. It's just their narrative stuff is so funny and so like
and
so
it's gotten
so well done.
Like their chops for that stuff have really, really developed over the last 3 games.
The writing and the dramatic, especially the dramatic presentation of the 11 story was just like gobsmacking in terms of how good it was by fighting game standards.
Yeah, I'm a person who plays fighting games like a single player game, which for a lot of fighting games that doesn't work out very well, but for Mortal Kombat it works.
For MK, they found a way to make it work. Yeah,
there's value there for me.
Yeah, and again, I didn't think 10 was an amazing story. Like 9 is cool, but it's kind of a retelling of those first games. But like 11 at the end, when you get into that montage with Liu Kang and Raiden and stuff at the end, like it's straight up pumping your fist, jumping out of your chair, shit.
And the DLC campaign's good too. If you haven't actually played through that.
All right, that is Mortal Kombat. Like I said. You're either laughing, having a good time listening to us talk about that, or maybe you're hearing it over on the Patreon side, wondering what's going to happen as well.
Also curious to see what it looks like. This says that it is current consoles only, not last gen. So
interesting. Okay,
11 was a very good looking game already.
I don't know if I want those games to look any better. They're already.
Yeah, man. I don't know. There's a certain point where it's like you can count the number of like veins coming out of the stomach that is falling out of the guy, and it's like, I don't need that. Actually,
it's almost too good looking.
I love horror, but I think maybe you have reached the ceiling of what I want from that stuff.
Next up in the news here, Brad, you put this story in here just to make everyone depressed about the Pac-Man 99. Easy come, easy go.
This story ran ice water through my veins because I thought Pac-Man 99 was neat. I'm not going to miss it terribly, but they better not touch Tetris 99.
I think people still play that game is the thing.
Yeah. I haven't played it in a while, but last time I played, it was like you were still getting into 100-person matches instantly. Tetris 99 is incredible.
Yes.
They're shutting down Pac-Man 99 in October.
Yes.
Which certainly raises questions about the sort of free promotional game that Nintendo has traded in with the Nintendo Switch Online stuff. I guess it's not as big a thing with PlayStation Plus, or Game Pass is its own thing. Nintendo's kind of unique in this, like, hey, we made games, and you can only play them by getting on the service kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you could pay in for DLC in this too. So
from a preservation, ongoing availability standpoint, the fact that this is just going away, whatever. It's not the first time games have just up and vanished, but it still sucks.
You'll still be able to play the like basically single player mode, the CPU mode, but I don't know if that's why you were coming to Pac-Man 99.
Probably not. Yeah, and that's only if you bought into the DLC already, which I guess you could still do if you want to just keep the game in some form. But yeah, without the multiplayer,
That's the thing is, I'm not sure people really were coming back to Pac-Man 99.
No, I mean, they, if it was still doing gangbusters, they wouldn't be shutting it down, of course. But
it was very okay.
Just don't fucking touch Tetris 99.
I'm with you. I don't even play that game much anymore, but like I want access to that thing forever.
Yes.
If you are some kind of completionist, or I don't know what you're doing, but if you want to get the DLC stuff, you can get that until September, and then you're going to be locked out of that. And then,
Oh, actually, sorry. The other thing I forgot to mention is that there is the involvement of Bandai Namco here, which may have something to do with this shutting down. Same
like
developer.
There's a licensing deal signed that has since expired.
Yeah, or they don't see the value in continuing it. Same developer. It was Arika that did both of the 99s. But maybe Tetris is safer without a third-party publisher involved.
Maybe.
Tip your hat. Is anyone truly safe?
Just let me have this.
Is anyone truly safe? Is Nicolas Cage truly safe?
Oh, man.
Put Nic Cage in a video game.
Didn't see this one coming. Gotta be honest with you.
Alex Navarro, Nic Cage is going to be in Dead by Daylight, a game I don't really know that much about, but other than I know it's very popular.
It's very popular. It's an asymmetrical multiplayer game where, horror movie monsters stalk survivors. And so they have, over the years, gathered a whole bunch of different movie monsters and characters from popular horror films to appear in those games in a very Fortnite kind of way, the way they go about their licensing. And today a teaser dropped that just says, it's the performance of a lifetime. Dead by Daylight, Nicolas Cage, coming to a realm near you. Learn more on July 5th, and it is literally just a teaser video that shows his in-game model and a little tiny bit of narration.
Is that you?
What do you mean?
The voiceover?
As in, like, him saying that stuff?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they got him to record some voice lines, it sounds like, yeah.
So he would be the one stalking you. You don't play as Nicholas.
I don't know. He could be a survivor, is the thing. They could make him a survivor character instead of a monster character.
Okay.
I would probably, since they're not showing him in some kind of monster form, I'm guessing he's playing a survivor, but I have no idea. Here's the real thing. This is the first time Nicolas Cage has been in a video game.
That's what I was waiting to ask, was surely this can't be the first polygonal Cage ever.
It's possible there is some version of his likeness in some other licensed game from like an earlier movie he was in, but nothing he's ever voiced, nothing where he has lent his specific likeness to. I mean, you can count that Lost Planet 3 game where the lead character just does look an awful lot like him, despite definitely not being portrayed or played by Nicolas Cage. But no, this is it. This is really the first time he has appeared in a video game like this.
Certainly the highest fidelity polygonal Nicolas Cage ever.
Oh, that guy's going to get modded into so much Steam porn. And to me, I say, mwah, go with God.
Maybe this opens the door to him being in something else. Maybe he'll enjoy this process.
And I want to emphasize, he's not doing this for tax reasons. He has said over and over again his tax lien stuff is mostly done with at this point.
He has said over and over again?
He has, in recent interviews, he says, I'm not taking projects just to pay the bills anymore.
That's a weird interview question, but I'm glad he's addressing it.
His entire 2010s run primarily is movies he took to pay off those tax bills.
What's your excuse now, Nick?
That was like the whole story about him for a while, was he'll just do anything because he needs the money badly.
Well, now he'll do anything because he likes working, is the thing. And he is being slightly more selective about the projects he takes, though they're not all bangers. I saw Renfield last night. It wasn't great.
How much is he in it?
He's in a good chunk of it. I think it's been slightly overstated that he's not in enough of it, but he's not absent for long stretches of it. He does come back regularly, and I think he is having fun. I think he's pretty good at it. Ben Schwartz as the bad guy, he's hamming it up real hard, despite the fact that character is terrible, but I'll give him credit. He makes more out of it than he should.
Is he also playing a vampire?
No, he's a gangster who becomes well, I don't want to spoil it, but he gets involved in the Dracula plot. But it's about 40% of a good movie and 60% of a deeply confused and annoying movie. So that's unfortunate. But Cage is good in it.
That's cool. I have to continually remind myself how huge Dead by Daylight is.
It's massive. As these asymmetrical games go, it is one of the biggest.
Yeah.
Is there still just Dead by Daylight, not Dead by Daylight 2?
I don't believe they have tried to follow that up with a sequel at this stage.
Apparently you can find out more on July 5th. But yeah, Nic Cage, come join some other games. There's plenty.
We're gonna have to play that game once at least when this comes out. I'm going to insist on that right now. I'm putting it on record.
Yes, I will contact Abby Russell right now.
All
we will get a crew together for. At least with Nic Cage. I wonder, yes. I don't even know if it's random. I don't know if you get to choose.
I think you can just pick. So I think you can pick skins or specific characters for that stuff. Again, I have not played any Dead by Daylight. I'm just going off what I vaguely know from watching other people play it.
Okay. Find out more again July 5th. Speaking of which, we're going to close out the news here, but we just were informed, along with everybody else maybe, that Sony is doing their PlayStation Showcase, which, according to at least Polygon's story here, they're billing as E3-ish. So this is maybe their big one ahead of E3, which is barreling down the road. Or, sorry, when I say E3, you know what I mean.
Yes.
The E3 season, because E3 is obviously not a thing.
It's the summer of games now, okay?
Yes. Sorry, yes. But their Sony's PlayStation showcase is scheduled for May 24th at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific.
Yeah, not a state of play.
Not a state of play. So stuff that is being teased as being shown here, things like Spider-Man 2.
So that's just a breakdown of what Sony's got announced.
They're obviously not saying what's coming just yet.
No, they don't know yet. But things that could also be shown here, or that have not been shown in further detail. The Horizon multiplayer stuff.
God, I forgot that was even happening.
Yeah, there's
Last of Us multiplayer stuff. Knights of the Old Republic hasn't shown in a while. That remake, and their PlayStation blog is saying it's going to run for about an hour, so that's a pretty good chunk of time at the clip they usually go through games. And they do say, the blog, again, this is PlayStation's blog, says there will be PSVR 2 stuff that is in development from the top studios. And new stuff, they're saying. So unannounced stuff. So this is kind of a big deal for Sony's upcoming titles, or maybe stuff that's in development. We will obviously cover it in some capacity. We're not sure exactly what we're going to do. That hits right when we're recording this podcast. So we'll figure out next week whether we are going to pause that to talk over it, or pause it to probably just talk within the podcast. We'll figure that out.
Either way, we should be able to have something to say about what they showed on the podcast.
Yeah. It's starting. The E3 season is upon us next week. This is earlier than I thought. I realized Sony was going to do something this summer. I thought they would hit around, middle of June.
I'm trying to remember how they've been doing things, or even how they were doing things back when they pulled out of E3, when E3 still existed. Were they going early?
I don't remember.
I feel like maybe in 2019 they did go before E3.
Okay.
With something. This Polygon story points out that PlayStation Showcase is the name they used for the stream where they revealed the PlayStation 5.
Oh. Okay.
So, give you an idea of how they regard this type of presentation.
The caliber of the showcase. Look forward to it on the 24th. I think Microsoft also scheduled theirs, but that's not for, I think that's a month out now.
12th, right? I think.
Yeah.
12th of June, I believe.
Got some time on that one. That's going to do it for the news.
11th, I'm sorry.
11th. Okay. So, we got like 3.5 weeks-ish before that one. That's it for the news. Again, you can, or not again, for the first time, Overwatch stuff, the Vice news, the MK reboot, which you probably know about already, Pac-Man 99, Nic Cage and Dead by Daylight, and that Sony PlayStation Showcase that'll be happening live next week. We also have an email address. That email address is podcast@nextlander.com, podcast@nextlander.com. Brad, you want to pull an email? We got a little time here.
I got a couple here.
Okay.
Comment from Nate. We talked about the possible Nintendo Cinematic Universe on some podcast or other recently. Nate writes in, Nintendo Cinematic Universe is definitely going to happen after the rampant success of the Mario movie, with the Avengers of this thing being Super Smash Brothers. Like, I don't know how I didn't think of that when we talked about it last time.
Of course. God.
Of course there's going to be a Smash movie, and it's going to be the thing that unites all the brands.
Yeah, you're right.
Nate also asks, do you think we'll get a Star Fox movie, and should we? I feel negligent having not thought of that when we were listing Nintendo franchises that could get movies. That one seems more likely than Zelda to me, actually. Not in terms of popularity, but in terms of, like, could you make a good animated movie out of this?
Yeah, like that's where I'm having trouble with it.
I want a live action Star Fox.
Why?
Because I want that's what I want. I want like Howard the Duckish puppetry, and
all right, as long as you know what you're asking for.
That's what I want. Okay, or maybe more of a Sonic, like a Sonic style.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I just don't think Star Fox is big enough at this stage for them.
Yeah. Again, I mean, yeah, popularity wise, I don't know if it makes sense.
I feel like you get Star Fox as a cameo somewhere versus a whole.
That's movie. An animated series.
Yeah, okay.
That's like a Netflix series. That's not a movie.
Yeah. Look, cash those checks, Nintendo.
Dude, they are.
Yeah, they definitely are.
They extremely are. Trust me.
Aonuma was also out there talking about the possibility of a Zelda movie or TV show.
Sure.
In the wake of this game doing so well.
Sure.
I think his general comment was something like, "I would love to, but it's not up to me."
Why would they? They got it right the first time with that first cartoon series.
Yeah, of course.
Think he's getting points on all that stuff?
I don't know.
I kind of hope so, but like
I don't know what
Japan might be
Nintendo's.
weird. Yeah.
I don't know what their profit sharing methods are, if they even have them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some of it, I think the corporate culture obviously is somewhat different, but usually like high-level creatives are retained on some kind of contractual basis, right?
Well, and on top of that, and I saw a lot of people talking about this in the wake of Tears of the Kingdom coming out. They're unique in the sense that they tend to retain talent for long stretches of time. Like a lot of the people that worked on this game have been working on Zelda for at least the last 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, he succeeded Miyamoto in running the franchise, if that tells you anything.
There have not been a lot of showrunners for this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder. I kind of hope so.
What, a movie?
No, like financial.
Sorry, I forgot which question we were talking about.
No, not a Star Fox movie. That those creators, like when a movie or a property comes out, they see some return on, because they built those franchises.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, we know how bad like Marvel has been about a lot of that stuff and paying artists and creators that created the comics they are now making billions off of in movies. But I don't know. Nintendo's such a black box with that stuff. I have truly no idea like what level they are rewarding people for that work.
And then, Japanese developers from the time when they had to obscure their names in the credits to now.
Yes,
I hope
so they wouldn't get pilfered.
Changed. Yeah. Brad, you want to do another email?
Yes. Question from TJ. Yes, I've recently introduced my 5-year-old to Mario Kart on the Switch, and he loves it.
Okay.
He quickly figured out that Mario was the main character and wants to play as him every time. We also recently went to a Mario-themed birthday party where all the kids went home with a gift bag that had a random Lego Mario character. My 2 kids came home with Wario and Waluigi, and they had some questions.
Uh-huh.
I've played a lot of Mario games, but never one that had any real characterizations of these two. I think they are tricksters, but don't know anything else about them. How do I explain Wario and Waluigi to a 5-year-old?
There are 2 men who love each other very much.
And garlic, right? One of them also loves garlic.
I think they both do secretly, but yes. I don't know. I don't actually think Nintendo has ever actually codified the nature of their relationship. Sometimes they say they're brothers, sometimes they say they're friends. They're just, I forget, there's one quote out there's like, they're just 2 evil guys who found each other, which I think is maybe my favorite explanation of that. But I think that's the one you tell your kid, is like, they're 2 evil guys that hang out.
Is Wario kind of the brains of the operation, and like Waluigi?
I think they share a single brain cell.
Okay. I mean, Wario's a businessman. He's just out there trying to make some
not a very
bucks,
good
right?
one.
No, he might not be a good one, but he's like an entrepreneur. He's always out there trying to...
Yeah, he's selling his wares. We know.
He's selling his wares. I feel like Waluigi is maybe more like Joker-esque, just pure chaos, where Wario wants to get paid, and I don't know what Waluigi wants. Just to be in games.
I mean, look, Waluigi has the look and vibe of a guy who ties women to railroad tracks, but I don't really know what his motivations are, other than apparently he likes tennis.
Yeah. I mean,
that's where he first appeared, right? He was in one of those Mario tennis games, I think.
They just needed a 4th, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would say, as somebody who would have to explain it, I would say they're the evil Mario and Luigi. That's it.
Yeah, they're Bizarro. They're the Bizarro versions of the characters you know and love.
They're Mario, but with a mustache.
There you go. With a mustache, but with a mustache?
With a squiggly mustache.
Yeah, with a slightly different mustache.
Yes.
That Mario movie, by the way, that's out on streaming now.
Oh, already?
Yes.
Yeah.
They just put it out this week on streaming.
Digital only so far.
It's like the week my son has not asked. It's fallen down.
Just don't bring it up.
Yeah, well, listen, I like that movie. I'd watch it. Well,
I'm going to watch it.
They've seen it twice now. Any more emails?
Do one more here.
Okay.
Here's one from Nia. On the latest Never Been a Better podcast, you were talking about anesthesia, and Abby mentioned, what if you woke up during surgery?
Oh dear God.
Oh, why are we doing this?
Well, Well, I went in for surgery once, and I woke up to someone tugging at my arm to wake me up.
Oh.
Only it wasn't that. Instead, I opened my eyes to see that the surgeon was reattaching a tendon in my wrist with the determination and force of a car mechanic trying to work on a miracle on a rusted old Honda.
Oh, I'm so upset.
It didn't take long for them to notice I had woken up, and I will stress that my bean was well baked, so I did not mind and instead went back to sleep.
But Nia remembered? That's the part that Abby was like, would you remember?
Apparently.
Oh, boy.
I saw a movie as a kid about someone being conscious but paralyzed for a heart transplant once, and it had haunted me to that day. Yet it was somehow comforting to be reassured that, as with most things in life, drugs make all the difference.
I was going to thank you, Brad, but now I don't. Thanks for everybody sending in the emails. Oh, that is.
What is going on that podcast?
That's a good question.
Nothing good, man. Trust me.
That's a good question. Hey, listen, out of all the things it could have been about that podcast, at least it wasn't about poop. All right, that's going to do it for the emails, and that's going to pretty much do it for the show. Games we covered here today: Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, Humanity, and Cook Serve Forever, all out now, all available on various consoles and platforms. We've got the Watchcast going on. We are nearing the end of some Guys Are Coming to Kill Us? Is that the...
Yeah, that's what I've been saying.
Okay. And that means that we have now recorded our thoughts on the raid. That'll go up next week if you're keeping up. But currently up on the Watchcast feed, you can check out Judgment Night, where we talk a lot about Judgment Night's soundtrack, rap rock, and some about the movie, the Judgment Night movie. That's all on the Watchcast. Like Brad mentioned, we have Never Been a Better podcast up. That was a one with Brad and Austin and Abby and Bacalar. Shenanigans happening over there. That's over on the Patreon. That's patreon.com/Nextlander, along with the Ramblecast and all the other goodies there. You can go check it out. Find yourself a tier that works right for you. For you. There is one tier there that gets their name read on this here podcast. It is the Mysterious Benefactor tier. And I'm going to read those names of our mysterious benefactors right here, right now. Starting with RRE, John Richardson, Vornak, Park, Kelly F., James Smith, Brian Lucier, Skywarp, John Hubbard, Sean Miller, Evan Cook, Mark Wilhelm, Jerry Lee, Gary Pejke, Robert Fisher, John McInnes, Hashtag Bunny Crimes, Peter Reardon, Thomas Lynn, Jad Rita, Statics, Andrew Jackson, Razgriz2, Brian Murphy, Trevor and Adrian R, Randy Duax, Andrew Tiebkin, Alex Wu, It Me JP, Matt Clements Jr., Edward Chick, Andrew Slosky, Steve Lynn, Matthew Herrig, David Campos, and Tyler Treese. Those are the mysterious benefactors for this week. Thank you very much to those mysterious benefactors, and thank you to everyone who has supported us over at patreon.com/Nextlander. Have I mentioned we couldn't do it without you? I don't know if I mentioned that before.
It's true.
It is true.
It's impossible to do
can't
it.
mention it enough.
It is true. And thanks to everybody for supporting us over on Twitch, YouTube, and listening to this here podcast and the Watchcast. We do appreciate that as well. That is going to do it for this week's show. Do not be angry at me because I'm not enjoying your Zelda game as much as you are.
I don't think you have to throw that in there. I'd like to think our people understand that you are having a good time.
People do not understand, but I am not ashamed to say I am liking it but not loving it. But people get weird about it. We know this. We all know this.
On the internet? What?
We all know this. I'm joking around. I'm 3/4 of the way joking, and those 1/4 people back off. Back off.
I know we're like 5 months in already, but I'm just going to say 2023, the year of living and letting live.
That's right. Live and let live.
How about it?
I'll tell you this. I hope that game gets better because it sucks. No, I'm just
oh my god!
I hope it gets better. I'm looking forward to it getting better.
Okay, let's race.
What's that?
Let's race. Am I going to finish Breath of the Wild, or are you going to finish Tears of the Kingdom first?
I am very curious if you're going to finish Breath of the Wild. I'm
real, like I said, I'm really trucking through it this time.
Yeah. I just wonder if you're going to finish Breath of the Wild and have the stamina to jump right into Tears of the Kingdom and be like, you might be in a situation where you're like, oh man, I don't know.
I wonder if that leads to maybe a more streamlined experience because you don't want to explore and piddle around as much and you just kind of want to go through it.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. I look forward to more ridiculous gifts of penises taking on giant enemies and floating around. And making my own penises in Tears of the Kingdom.
Every penis is a gift.
That's going to do it for our show. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for supporting us. We'll be back next week.